How would you like to be able to rebuild a life of purpose after you've lost everything? Lubim Kogan will tell us how. He is a 5-time first-generation immigrant, Winter Olympian, 9/11 World Trade Center survivor, and NYU Stern graduate. And after co-authoring a national bestseller with Steve Forbes and speaking at the United Nations, he walked away from it all to lead a failing nationwide infrastructure company in Ukraine. And out of that, he founded Wings for Heroes, a mission that helps amputee veterans rediscover purpose and strength through the power of flight. And his work is not about recovery. It's about keeping the promise we all made to those who gave up everything. So Lubim, tell us, please, how can entrepreneurs rebuild a life of purpose after they've lost everything? Your podcast with Lily Patrascu shares longevity and anti-aging techniques to stay young forever, increase energy, overcome addiction, and live your longest, best life ever, shared by world's most innovative, alternative, and traditional health thought leaders, healers, and doctors. Discover quantum healing strategies to heal your mind, body, and soul.
Hi, Lily. Thanks for having me on your show. I think that finding the purpose that is important to you is the way that you rebuild. It doesn't matter what your situation is. I say that, we all have two compasses. One is in our mind and the second compass is in our heart. So when your situation gets so difficult, rebuilding is a lot more difficult in many cases than building from the ground up. Because when you have an infrastructure that you've invested your time, your money, your effort in, and when it collapses, you have to try to save what you have. So finding the purpose of what drives you from deep down inside is the most important part of rebuilding when you lost everything.
Thank you. So tell us, how can someone actually find that purpose after they've lost everything?
This is probably one of our life challenges and one of the tasks that we are all on this planet for. I think it has to be something that is really meaningful to you. So you cannot think up a project or you cannot think up a business. It has to come from deep down inside. And that is really difficult to do when you lost something that is important to you, because the head compass is dominating that show. It's always that voice that is talking about what you should be doing, where you should be going, what you should be focusing on. It always tells you all the risks, points at all the things that are against you. It sees all the odds, and then it quiets down the voice inside of you. So finding that purpose, there are several practical things that I do personally. And let's just go down the short list, even though I don't have the list. Well, first of all, I love mornings. I think that the morning time, that 4 a.m. time, is the most important time of the day. That's when nobody is going to call you. Nobody's going to email you. All your issues, people have families, your kids are asleep, your spouse is asleep. And at 4 o'clock in the morning, you can actually feel in your heart and see what's important to you and what you'd like to accomplish in this lifetime. And sometimes losing it all is the best thing that could ever happen to us. We see a loss of business as a devastating thing. But I don't know if you had this experience talking to other people, maybe on your own, is that I know that I was the happiest moments in my life came when I had nothing. And the most miserable moments in my life came when I had financial independence and financial freedom, where I could do whatever I wanted to do. So that morning hour, you just sit and quietly listen inside and look inside and see what you'd like to accomplish by the end of your lifetime. And one of the things, there are a lot of great people that came before us. And I'm just an average guy. I don't have any special talents, but I'm relentless. If I'm going after something, it doesn't matter how long it will take for me. So if my heart says that something that I should follow it and I decide that I'm going after it, then I don't really look at the clock time. We all on the clock, but some things could take you a month to accomplish, and some things may take you 10 years to accomplish. So placing these limitations in terms of when you need to get things done is one of the things why people quit. So you find what's important to you and you decide that I'm going to go after it and I'm going to do whatever it takes and I'm going to go after it for as long as it takes. And the magic thing happens is that when you're not looking at the clock, things just start falling into place. And you just, I think another important thing to know is that we just need to take one step at a time. We may overwhelm ourselves with, I have to do this, I should be doing that. But what is the most important thing that you can do next in order to get to your goal? And you just focus on that. And once that's accomplished, you will see the next step, because a lot of times it's impossible to see the second step before you take the first one. So I guess in general, quiet time, make a decision to go after what's important to you, make a commitment to take as long time as it takes, and then just watch for the magic to happen.
Thank you. Tell us about your journey of how you rebuilt your life of purpose after you've lost everything.
I think it's kind of, the answer is short and simple answer is that I found a mission that is bigger than me and all the people that I know. So I saw somebody who took care of, I saw men and women who took care of us, they protected us, and they are the ones who allowed me to live freely and go after my dreams. But then I saw them in a situation where they were helpless and they couldn't do anything. And that really, I couldn't look away. I couldn't look away, and I started I started running the mission. And it gets me out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. I don't even need to set an alarm. And at midnight, I'm still going. So it is purpose driven. It is that feeling that I have to get things done. And, Lily, I'm clearly aware that I'm here for a very short period of time. Even if I live till 100, that time is running fast. And I'm counting, I used to do this 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. Now you're getting close to 40 years ago, and you're realizing wow, if I can think that far back, fast forwarding to the day when I'm finished on this planet is coming soon. So just having awareness that I really need to get big things done, it really motivates me and drives me every single day to work on my mission. I think, yeah.
Tell us, how can entrepreneurs rebuild their life of purpose after they've lost everything? Tell us your 10 commandments for doing so.
I wouldn't say that I have the commandments as steps, but again, I think it really has to be something has to be important to you. So let's say you run a business, right? Whatever business it is, and you're super successful. And then something happens and you lose everything. So one thing that you need to reflect back and say, look, I have these skills that I've been working on. I have this experience that I acquired. So the next time, if I do the same thing, it should be faster and it should be easier. So first thing is realizing that the task that is ahead of you, you're capable of. And the second thing is that everything that you've done in your life, it got you to this point where you're ready to take the next step. Now, if you're doing the same thing after you lost everything, you're trying to get back to some place, I think it's a recipe for failure. So if one of the things that I wanted really to share is that you have to be really careful to see what you're going after. Because sometimes we create the dreams and goals that universe moved you away from something you were doing because you were meant to do something else. And I think step number one, and probably the most important step, is thinking and answering, why am I doing it? There are books that I've written about it, and, I read that start with why, and it's really kind of, philosophical and not specific. But think about this, you and I, we will spend this time together, and I really hope I can bring something valuable to your listeners. And that thing is that the time that we spend, we cannot get it back. So if you are giving up the most valuable asset, which is your time, why are you doing and why are you going after whatever that may be? Now, I think if you decide that it's important to you, then you should go after it. And my personal experience, I think that, for me, the finances, even though it was nice having it and it's nice and luxury is super nice, but monetary goal as a goal is the recipe for failure. And the reason for that is because you will trade all your time that you can spend with your loved ones, with your family, with your kids, doing sports or, going to places that you like. When you're running your business, you're sacrificing a lot. There's no secret about it. And if you're making all the sacrifices for something like money, then it's not exactly the right way to go. I'd say Steve Jobs left us big legacy. We all know iPhones and, we know Apple, and I'm on my Mac talking to you right now. But I think the biggest thing that he left to us is his way of life. He would get up every morning and he would look in the mirror and he would say, do I love doing what I'm doing right now? And he said that if the answer is no 2 days in a row, then I'm really thinking hard about why am I doing it? And I am guilty of going decades doing things that I never really like. I got really good at it. I enjoyed being good in finance. I enjoyed getting financially compensated. I enjoyed having nice cars, nice home, freedom to do whatever I wanted to do, pretty much whenever I wanted to do it. But then there was no meaning in it, So I think finding that meaning and knowing your why and being committed to it. So, I'm going down the list, but I think I'm emphasizing one thing is that you need to know that your most valuable asset is your time. And you take that time and you trade it for something that's important to you. And the money always comes. All the people that I know who love what they're doing, they're super happy and they have really fat bank accounts.
Thank you. I've always found that one of my biggest assets has always been my positivity and my ability to see beyond what's happening right now. Even if it's like a negative situation where you can say the universe closes a door, and then I'm always thinking, wow, that's great, because that means the universe wants me to do something even better. Okay. But I would say most people that are around me don't have this kind of perspective. If anything bad happens to them, they will be complaining about it for years. I wonder, how can someone find the positivity to actually look at any negative situation, like any situation where they have lost everything, as a way to rebuild, as an opportunity to become creative again, as an opportunity for a fresh, better start?
Mm-hmm. Lily, because you're asking me this question, I know you lived through a difficult time. The only way to answer that question is to go through a difficult time, or think back about difficult time that you had a while back and think about how you thought about it at that moment in time. Injury, divorce, lawsuit, loss of business, bad economy, bad neighbor, bad plumbing, bad location of the house, like whatever you got yourself into, that situation seemed terrible. Even personal illnesses, they seem terrible at the moment. But when you think back about it 10 years, 5, 10 years, sometimes it's less. When you think back, you're thinking, oh, wow, I really see that thing was a blessing. It's like a Final Destination. Everybody knows that movie, but one wrong turn can lead you in a very different direction. So I think you should go back in your lifetime. Whoever's thinking about, I'm in such a bad situation, why? Just go back in your lifetime and find out the situation that you thought was bad at that specific moment. So just to make an example, I grew up with a stepmother who was an alcoholic, and she was really abusive. Like, I could not be at home day or night. She would find me and we'd have some kind of issues. And when you're a little kid, we're talking about 10 years old, like, you can't really fight back. So my way out was running, and I think getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, it lasted from there. Everybody says you have such work ethic. How can you come, and how can we get all these emails from you and messages like at 4 o'clock in the morning? But that's my inner child who never healed. He always wants to run. That's number one. Number two, when I started skiing and I got on a little team that took us outside of the city and we went skiing into the mountains, I realized that this is my escape. So I stayed with skiing and I could not give it up, because the alternative was, not pleasant, or actually really abusive situation at home. So if I look at the situation when I'm 10 years old and I have nowhere to go, right? And the only thing I can do is run away to school, and then I have to come back after school. From that, I learned, number one, I can get up early in the morning. You know, I'm turning 50 next month. I still get up at 4 naturally. I don't need an alarm. And number two, I skied all my life. I made it to the Olympics, and it's forever. You know, that one accomplishment, it tells that you're different from everyone. So all the difficulties in your life, they're making you more resilient. They're building the muscles for you to accomplish your next goal. And your next goal is going to be bigger than the one that you accomplished before. It may not be, again, it's not always in terms of bank accounts. Like if you think about what I'm doing right now, it's not about money. There is no money in helping amputee veterans. You know, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of work behind the scenes. So for those who are going through a difficult time right now, you are developing the skills and the inner resilience and strength that you need to accomplish the next bigger goal. So your life will be better, it will be more exciting, and it will be more colorful and sparkling like your background, you know?
Thank you.
All shiny and gold.
Thank you. How can someone who has lost everything find the courage to go forward? And the reason I ask you this is that I find that certain experiences in my life shaped me in a negative way, whereby I still don't have the courage to do certain things. And other experiences shaped me in a way that I had a lot of compassion for what happened. And I'm very understanding for people in general. So how can someone go beyond the fear that they have that sometimes can cripple them? So even let's say your purpose is to help amputee veterans. The reality is a lot of them could do internet work, you know, like they could become like internet millionaires.
Yeah.
But they do it? Possibly no, because they think they can't do anything. I mean, that's just an assumption. I'm just saying, like, you know, certain people in their lives, you know, get crippled by situations that they've had.
Yeah.
By just assuming they can't do anything better. How does someone find this courage?
So basically, there are two different things that I think can happen. Number one, it could be a psychological block, and another one could be really physical limitations. So it depends which one we're talking about. Now, with physical limitations, there is a limit, right? There's certain things that people with limited mobility can do. And we're not going to talk about it right now, but let's talk about the psychological part. I think that when we fail at something, or we have traumatic experience, depending on how deep that experience is, we may need help from the outside. And I'll give you a perfect example. I was in, probably 2021, it was before the Olympics, and I had a really hard fall. I mean, I crashed really hard. It was fall from the air, which are, really hard ones when you come down and you just smash into the ground. And physically, I recovered pretty fast, relatively fast. But then psychologically, like I would put my stuff on, I would take my skis, I would go towards the ski jump, and I would stand there and I would have tears running down my cheeks. And I was standing there, like I wasn't thinking about falling. I wasn't thinking about anything, but I was just standing there and shaking, and I couldn't do it. So if that situation, if your traumatic experience is so deep and it's so big, you need to realize that you need help, and you cannot get out. Sometimes you cannot get out of your psychological issues, troubles, whatever you call it, limitations by yourself. You need somebody to guide you through. And in business, you see it a lot in business, because successful people, sometimes you have people who run a successful business, and I'm talking about huge businesses. They have run a huge business and something changes in the outside environment, and they get lost to the point where everything is falling and they're just frozen. They're stuck in their office. They're waiting until somebody comes in and, starts moving the furniture out. Like, if a person who is listening to it is in that situation, you have to go out and you have to get help. You have to get help from a coach who's been through that. Like you said, you've been through it. So you are qualified to guide people and lead people through those difficult times. Sometimes it has to be a psychologist. So you're working with a professional and saying, look, I'm trying to do something, but I physically can't. I'm just frozen. Now, you get out of that stage, and then, it's a long road. If you are psychologically or emotionally had some kind of damage and you have this post-traumatic stress, it may take years to get over it. So concentrating on little baby steps and really celebrating them. Like, sometimes we get carried away. If I have $1 million year and then I lose everything, and next year I'm positive, like after all my expenses, after I have 10,000 left, like that is a huge win. Do you know what I mean, Lily? So that 10,000 in the bank is a lot more than the million that I had before. So really being happy and grateful for that, it kind of moves you out of that emotional rut. It tells you that, look, I am okay. This is the first sign that I'm on my way back. So next year, it may not be 10,000, it may be 10 million, but I just got to keep making baby steps, and that one step at a time towards my goal. And one of the things I think that you need to get ready to be a loner. When you are down, there's nobody outside who can understand you, like what you're going through. And at those difficult times, you really need to find like that strength that we all have inside, that I can make it through until you see that, you're okay. And then we always interact with people, but I'm saying that building a foundation or building a foundation starts with yourself. Like for me, physical exercise, moving, like if I am under stress, the more stress I'm under, the more I walk. When we were writing book with Steve Forbes, we had deadlines, and the biggest limitation was you had to make it smaller and make it more impactful. You have to get your point across. You only have very small number of words. And writing and rewriting, like I couldn't stay put. I had to, I sat down and I wrote 25,000 words like in a few days. And they said, okay, it has to be 3,000. And you're like, what? So I walked in August of 2013, I averaged over 30,000 daily steps. But for me, that motion was the positive way of getting out of that rut. It wasn't alcohol, it wasn't drugs, it wasn't doing some things. It was just moving my body and thinking and writing in my head and just focusing on that thing and seeing it done. I can't hear you. I think you're...
How do you rebuild a life of purpose after you've lost everything, when you have strong criticism from your family and friends? And what I find is that the hardest thing that you need to cope with after losing everything is everyone saying, oh, you're never going to do it. Everything you do is failing. Everything you do doesn't work out. Everything you invest in, doesn't pan out. Your wife could leave you. Like there's so many different things that could happen once you've lost everything, because it's like everyone seems to disappear and you're there on your own, but you're not on your own because you're really there with all the thousands of critics that don't understand actually you could be already on your way back, like already be making winning steps, but they don't know that. They don't see that. All they see is all of your failures. So how do you cope with that?
Okay. I think the best thing would be to realize that even though if they gave you a long list, okay, all those critics, let's say family members, they're our biggest teachers and it's the biggest challenge. So it's your mom, your dad, your relatives, your spouse, anybody who can, pardon me. Your closest people are your biggest, they are your biggest teachers. So they have to be there. They have to say that stuff to you. Now think about this. If you write a long list or they write a long list, they say, Lily, you have to start this kind of business. You have to look like this. You have to weigh like this. This is your husband. This is your house. These are how your kids should behave. Like all this list, right? And you go and you check off every single mark. Could it ever happen that they're going to say, oh, wow, you checked off the list. You're so great.
No,
exactly. That's the point. So they are challenging you. As closest people, you are emotionally connected to them. If somebody outside of the street says, hey, Lubim, you're a loser, bye, I didn't even react. But if my dad comes and says, hey, Lubim, you're doing this thing, where is the money in this thing? Where is the money in this thing? Where is the money in this thing? That's like, That's your male figure, that's your father authority, you have responsibility, you're growing up. He is challenging me to take a look and think, am I really doing the right thing? Because if I can say no to the closest people, then I'm doing the right thing. If the closest people to me cannot stop me, then the probability that I'm doing something right is very high. Now, sometimes we do things that are really, for the lack of better word, they're stupid, not productive, right? And they're not getting us anywhere. That's one thing. But when you had a vision and it didn't work out, look, Steve Jobs got thrown out of Apple. He was gone for 10 years. Okay? He went somewhere else. He got lost in India. They were tripping on mushrooms and they were doing stuff, they were doing some things, just trying to find. It's one of the most brilliant people in our lifetime. He was lost for a long time, but then he started Pixar. Pixar is one of the best movie studios that was ever created, and it came out of failure. Then he started Next. Then he came back to Apple. Then he introduced us, music, iPhone, iPad, all of these things. So I'm saying that people who are close to us, they are our biggest teachers. And I think just taking it with, thank you for saying it. I understand what you're saying, but you cannot see the whole picture. And then when you win, just know they're not going to come to you and say, hey, Lily, congratulations. When I told you should quit, I'm so glad that you didn't listen to me. That conversation will probably, most likely never happen.
Thank you. Tell us where entrepreneurs can connect with you.
Oh, that's really simple. I'm running a humanitarian mission. It's wingsforheroes.org. I'm wearing our logos. So wings4heroes.org. If you hit a contact button, it all goes to me. There's nobody who is checking the mails. There's no spam. We don't have any mailing lists. It all goes directly to me. And I think that if somebody listened to the show, I think they have a specific need. And that need is, how do I get out of this difficult situation when I feel like so lost and so alone? I don't even know what to do next. I will answer that question. I will answer that email. If we can talk, we'll talk. Yeah, but at wingsforheroes.org, click the contact button and you will get to me and I will get back to you.
Follow me for more interviews with world's most innovative health change makers to live your healthiest life ever.